Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I'll be your host, Allison, and with me is the indomitable Brian. Apologies for the late start. We had
I
OBS.
had to I had to restart my computer, so
Yeah, you know what it
no
is.
big deal.
Artists, we're on artist time. So this is once again returning to Which Crazy Straw Pipeline Reigns Supreme, Part 2. Maintaining frame number 114, in which we go over the next Lily Alexandre, I believe the name is her name, and she is proposing a feminist to far right pipeline, but I'm assuming that is just clickbait and it isn't actually a in-depth analysis of how feminism and the far right might have sympathies. Oh no, I'm pretty sure. Is it clickbait?
How you can start off? Well, I have watched it. Unfortunately, it is essentially how if you have the gall to essentially like if you have the gall to be critical, I guess, of the whole like trans agenda. If you are a feminist and you did that, then you are obviously now a far right Nazi because ultimately this is an attack on Nazis, and it's you and well on not Nazis on people who are critical of or don't appreciate the trans agenda or the trans position or the trans existence or whatever the gay race Marxist language is today. And essentially, if you're a feminist like, say, a J.K. Rowling, you have become far right now because you don't agree with their views. And of course, when they label you far right, that means you're evil incarnate and should probably be cleansed from the earth.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of being cleansed from the earth, it looks like the vertical stream is not working.
Oh, no, it should be fine. It should be fine now.
Okay,
sorry.
Yeah, working.
You're a little behind, I think. You're a little behind.
All right. No, it's just me. I'm the one. I'm the fly in the ointment, which is actually pretty typical. So I want to do the things before we begin. If you want to send us a message at any point throughout the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of sending your comment not through YouTube's comment enhancement system, and you actually have a place to send it on Twitter if you're joining us in Exeter, whatever X, I guess X. If you're joining us on X, you can put your comments at feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and they will arrive right on the tips of our fingertips, I guess. That's a lot of tips. All right. Anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Just the tip. No, not that. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you'd like to support the show so that we can continue to bring you this delectable content, you can go to feedthebadger.com/support. That is feedthebadger.com/support to help us out. The monthly fundraiser is up. And once again, thank you to Richard Bier for putting in the first $500. Thank you, Richard. But every bit counts. Every bit is the last bit that got us over the line. So don't think that $5, $10 isn't great, because it is. So please go to feedthebadger.com/support and help us out there. All right. So this is also a request. It's a request by the Great Indoors. And he did preface this by saying that it's insane. Peak insanity, perhaps. Or are we at peak insanity? What do you think, Brian? Is there room to grow?
I think we can go. I think we go deeper.
I think we can go even further. Oh wow!
For sure. You're getting a phone call.
Yeah, I know, and I'm ignoring.
Somebody's popular.
I'm not. I'm going to ignore that. I'm just gonna. Okay, I'm going to let it go to. I'm going to let it
go to voicemail. Yeah, go to the voicemail. Yeah,
it's probably Google telling me to update.
I hope. Oh, okay. I hope it's not some warning that there's like a nuke inbound for Kelvington.
Oh no.
No. Does that seem a little unfeasible?
Yeah, well, I mean,
any more feasible than a man who decides to annihilate his entire family? It's probably not nearly as feasible as that.
Well, I mean, we do have a munitions dump up here in Saskatchewan, above North Dakota. So there's something going on up here because they put it here because there's not a lot of things to threaten, I suppose. But so we do have that. So maybe there could be a nuke inbound to that. We're not completely, and plus we also have lots of uranium too. So could just be like a dirty bomb in a uranium mine to
Could be.
blow up a prairie. I guess that's not really strategic, is it? Okay. But anyway, let's get on with the actual topic. Let's see what Lily Alexandre has to tell us.
Yeah, so we're gonna be looking at this video by Lily Alexandre called "The Feminist to Far Right Pipeline." Now, I meant to look into this. I think we responded, perhaps, or almost responded to a video by Lily Alexandre before, and all I will say for sure is that Lily Alexandre is a intersectional feminist. I'm not sure. So she considered. I'm going to go with she because it does look like a woman. They call themselves trans. A little bit confusing because
before you go too far in, it's still stuck on me on the vertical. I think.
I haven't switched it to the source yet. That's why. The source is up on the screen now. I see what you mean, but you want it to be on me when I'm talking?
Yeah, because you're talking, because we don't. If we want to cut you out and put you in your own little short, then you're just looking at me pondering, staring off into the distance, thinking very deeply about what you're saying. Of course, but yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, okay. So let me describe this. So Lily Alexandre, intersectional feminist, made a video. So as an intersectional feminist who I think is more on the trans side of things, she hates patriarchy, capitalism, people with families, normalcy, and anything that is that is no longer considered a part of the fringe, which she wants to make into the new normal. So this is the feminist to far right pipeline, because anyone who doesn't agree with me is either far right or on their way to being far right. And of course, I'm not going to define what far right is, because that would mean I would have to humanize the people that I'm lumping into that particular bin. So,
well, it makes the accusation less effective. It just says people who disagree with me. If you actually define it, then you could be talking about specific people, and you'd have to actually prove the accusation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's asking too much. It's not even fair. All right, so I guess we'll play a little bit of the intro part to just get us started. So here we go.
So here's a question. Why do people like this keep showing up at women's rights rallies?
Several men belonging to the neo-Nazi group were seen dressed in black and performing a Nazi salute.
Anyone who doesn't hug left-wing ideology is classed as a neo-Nazi by lefties.
Extreme views on both sides.
The most violent mobs are the woke ones. All you have to do is say something true, like there are only two genders, and they attack in a mob.
And how stupid do they think we are? The past few years have seen the radical right collaborating with radical feminists on a totally unprecedented scale, to the point that in certain cases, the two movements are totally impossible to tell apart. This is not a new observation. Lots of people have made it. But it's on my mind a lot lately because it's at my house now.
Obviously, female sports, female change rooms, female bathrooms should be for females, not for biological males.
The leader of Canada's conservative.
So we have Pierre Poilievre. He is obviously the poster boy of the far right, radical, neo-Nazi, anti-trans, anti-human, anti-progressive agenda. So she's essentially creating the framework now. Okay, so the framework is Pierre Poilievre, because she's Canadian, is the example, the poster boy of essentially everything that the progressives hate. Like, he's a man. He's probably heterosexual. I don't know. I haven't seen. I mean, even in my opinion, you can say what you want after this, Allison, but for even to have to explain that someone like him is not at all radical, just having to say that is like giving up ground to these people, in my opinion. Just to say, yeah, I've seen him in interviews and he just says he just wants common sense and he opposes Justin Trudeau. Like that, I shouldn't even have to make that case. I shouldn't, but this is where we are now. This is where we are now. This is considered super crazy, radical, whatever. And he's going to be the case for why all of the feminists that are critical of, trans ideology are just like him. They're going right. They're the same. And of course, there will be other comparisons. So this is like one of the theses that this individual, Lily Alexandre, is making. And I will address Lily Alexandre as a she because I think that's what they're going for, and that's what it looks like to me. So I'll just go with that. Allison, you're muted. Why are you muted? Did you hit a button? Nope, can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? You have done something. What have you done? Nope. Nope. I didn't do it. Man says, hope you don't mind me lurking while making some tzatziki. I love that on Euros. Mr. 0303 says, pray for Brian. I mean, like, honestly, I feel bad for these people. I really do. I think they're going to have miserable lives. I think Lily Alexandre and Manifestelle are kind of doomed because of they're living in a crazy upside down world in their mind, and they're not able to connect with real people. They're terminally online individuals. So I'm going to play some more of the video. Allison's audio still isn't working, but essentially this is like her first. So she's setting the stage. I'm a Canadian trans person, and there's this guy, and he's growing in popularity despite all of the problems happening in Canada. The multitude of things people might be inclined to vote for that are not about her. And she's troubled because that guy made a statement about bathrooms. I don't even think, honestly, I don't think he's running on that as a platform. I think that somebody asked him about it and he answered them. I'm pretty sure that Canada's problems are not men and women's bathrooms, not high on the list. I don't think it is. But I think that it's like a political football that gets passed around. But for Lily Alexandre, it's extremely important because she wants complete compliance. Yeah, it's not working, Allison. You got to fix that. I don't know what's going on. I didn't do it. I do not take the blame.
It's the shitty
microphone.
there
you are. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is the shitty microphone. But I know nobody doesn't. It was me. I did something. I hit something, and I have no idea why this thing doesn't want to work anymore. And now it's just like doing this thing where it just bobbles these lights.
What was that?
I don't know. I cannot.
Was that you?
What was what?
Bubbles. What's that?
I don't know what's going on. Really, it's possessed. Why does this?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, I know you can hear me because you can hear me through the Macintosh phone microphone. But my Shure microphone has just decided to not work, and I have no idea why. I can't. I'm looking at it right here. I'm like, I don't know. It seems to be working. The green lights are going on. Hello. Yeah. See, it is registering my voice. But as soon as I try to, for example, if I put it back on,
Well, let me switch it on my end because I can switch it on my end. Yes.
Can you hear me? You can hear me. What happened? What happened? I don't know either.
But don't do. Okay. Well, we got to figure it out. Just don't. Yeah. Don't do anything.
Won't touch the damn thing. All right,
yeah, it seems to be working now. So anyway, did you want to say anything about this first little bit? The framing is being set up.
I'm terrified of my microphone. I don't want to touch it because it might do something. Good Don. Isn't it maybe some sort of listening device in it or something? I know that sounds really paranoid. All right.
Probably.
What probably it's paranoid, or probably there's a listening device in it.
Yes, probably there is a
Like,
listening
you
device.
can't just listen. Like the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, just can't listen to our actual podcast.
The
They have to listen to
RCMP are listening.
the RCMP. Oh, they can't
Yeah.
just listen to our podcast. They have to also listen to me talk to my dog in a high pitched baby voice. Okay, that's the only thing that I really do. It's just
Okay.
paint, talk to the dog, talk to my husband about gardening. But anyway, so Pierre Polyev, yeah, you're right. He's just normal. Like, he's just like, I am the normal platform. That's it. I'm
I think
running
that's
on a
literally
platform
what
of
he's.
morality.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he's just running on that platform. I'm here to restore like sanity, and they're oh my god, no! He's going to put us in showers and gas chambers. I guess I don't know. I'm assuming that's
Even,
the only
like,
place where it can go.
Even immigrants, recent immigrants are actually looking at the immigration policy of Canada and saying, you guys need to stop. Because if you think about it, they come aboard, right? And it's like coming aboard a ship. And the Canadians' immigration policy is just like, yeah, let's throw open the doors. Let's not care about what the carrying capacity of the ship is. Let's just ram it cheek to jowl until we all sink. And even immigrants, immigrants from like 10 years ago are like, what are you doing? They call it the shitty buffet. All right, so let us shall we listen to some more?
Again, though, yeah, we'll listen to some more. But the point is, though, is that for Lily Alexandre, I think it's important to point this out. The person making this video essay, she's not commenting at all on Pierre Poilievre's positions on things that probably most Canadians are interested in, that's like high on their list of priorities, things like immigration, things like the economy, things like the cost of homes. I understand that homes are getting ridiculously expensive up there, kind of like what's happening in the UK right now. And a lot of that does have to do with immigration. And so that's the thing that they care about. They just want sanity restored. They just want like Canada to remain somewhat Canadian. And, like the stuff with trans issues, that's not on anyone's, list. It's just that the media, because they're always looking for things to get people talking, they will ask him questions about this they'll do this with like Trump and JD Vance too and whoever, and they'll bring up these like fringe issues and say address this, and then they'll address it in a way that they think is common sense. Like, he's like, well, I think that men should be in men's bathrooms and women should be in women's bathrooms, and this becomes like the primary issue for trans activists. So like, oh my god, he's not bowing the knee to us. And this is why there is so little sympathy for these issues, because not only are they not important, because most people are not going to be affected by this, and even most trans people aren't going to be affected by this, because most of them just kind of like figure out a way to like live their life. Like they're not being persecuted. They're not activists like on here, demanding that small businesses create bathrooms just for them, which would like, crash them, despite the fact that the economy itself is already in dire straits. Most people are just trying to get on with their lives. So Lily Alexandre is making a mountain out of a molehill. And I don't think Pierre Poilievre feels super strong about it anyway. He's probably just like, yeah, I think that, we want to like make this country livable for the average Canadian. And that's my goal, right? Just common sense stuff. And so, yeah, she's framing it this way because she wants it to be not about any of the other policies that he's running on or why people might be interested in voting for him, whatever it is, but rather about this one issue, which it's just not on the front of people's minds. So anyway, all right, let's play some more.
For years, this guy's probably going to be our next prime minister. And to make matters worse, the conservative premier of my province recently convened a panel to shape policy on gender identity in schools, whatever that means. None of the panelists are trans, and the leader is associated with a...
What? Did you leave, Allison, your camera? Oh, seems like your camera disappeared, Allison. What's wrong now? Senior Sticks gave us a super chat. I'm just going to take advantage of these technical difficulties. And gave us a super chat for $2 and says, if Canada can't be with Canada, can it be the USS? Canada can't be with Canada. Well, I think Canada, I'd be willing to let the US conquer like Alberta and Saskatchewan and just absorb it. And then like Quebec and all those other places, they can keep that. Let's just get Saskatchewan and Calgary or Alberta because they got the oil, and then we'll see. But I'd like
we
that.
have the uranium.
I think Trump should buy for the oil and the uranium. There you go. All right, you're back. Your camera's back.
Yes.
So all right. So anyway, so she says this, like, again, setting the stage. So weirdly enough, she says none of the MPs are trans. Well, what are the odds of that? Like, so, I mean, it's a kind of a weird thing to expect. Well, it's, you know what it is. You know what it is. Maybe you can speak to this because I know that the trans thing can be a little bit touchy, but it's the same as when a feminist says there are no women in SpaceX, therefore SpaceX must be hostile towards women because there are no women there. Like, did you hear this new thing? This new thing, I'm going to talk about the new show tomorrow called Manels. You know what a manel is?
No.
In the STEM fields, okay, Manels is what activists in STEM are calling panels. Like if there's a panel at a convention or at a talk or at a presentation we're talking like hard science, okay? If there's a panel of the best minds on a specific STEM subject and they're all men, they call it a manel, and there are people in the industry of STEM and the academic space and all of that are like, I will not participate in manels because there are no women involved. Because obviously the panel does not consider women or is hostile to women because there are no women on it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is that's what happens when you promote a narrative that society oppresses women. Obviously, everywhere where women aren't is a result of some kind of illegitimate force that's working in the background that we have to break down. Unfortunately, if that illegitimate force that's working down in the background is merit, then we got to break down merit. So anything that requires merit in society is on the chopping block, friends. This is not a productive philosophy.
No,
good luck to us.
Nope.
Good luck to us. All right. So yeah, that's what I think. I deserve to be honest. I thunked that. It was a good thunk. All right.
All right. So we're just like, so she's setting the stage. So this is the framing. I'm trying to be like, because this is a long video, and a lot of it is like her saying, "Oh, let me show you how funny and quirky and OMG random I am." So there's a lot of like garbage. It's like most of the whole video is garbage. Let's just be real. But I'm going to jump ahead to where she explains the tactics used by basically the far right, trans exclusionary, TERF, Nazi, conservative,
you mean
Christian.
Feminists?
No, it's feminists, but because they are being courted by the far right, which again, no one defines except as like the bad thing. Just the bad thing. It's the bad thing. And she's not the bad thing. She is the good thing. So anyway, let's play the thing. Okay.
For them. I hope you're ready, folks, because just like visitors to a surrealist exhibit, the time has come to get in the pipeline. So, anti-trans feminism originated in the 1970s among radical feminists like Mary Daly and Janice Raymond, author of the famous book, The Transsexual Empire. I'm not going to give an exhaustive history here because lots of people have done that already. But the important thing to understand is that radical feminists were a pretty coherent and focused movement at the time. They were all united by being strongly anti-gender and opposing anything they thought naturalized the connection between biology and destiny. Anti-gender doesn't.
Well, I'm glad that she's explicitly saying this so conservatives can realize this. This came from feminism.
Yes.
Right? This entire gender ideology came from feminism, and it came from the necessity of seeing women's role in the past not an expression of biology and their biological limitations, or even the expression of how men's biological limitations interact with women's biological. No, it was a result of oppression. And that narrative basically was the silver key that granted feminists access to all kinds of money, all kinds of funds, money funds, all kinds of clout, all kinds of social control. And now we're seeing the end result of that narrative, which is the deconstruction of the very concept of the sexes, which of course some feminists are opposing because it was only ever supposed to benefit biological women. This entire narrative that oppression is simply an arbitrary social thing. Like, if you read throughout human history and you actually read what men and women did to get us to this point, it becomes patently obvious that what restricted women was their biological limitations, specifically the limitations of pregnancy, lactation, early child rearing. Okay. If you got rid of all of the social conventions around women's limitations, like legally or socially, which, legally, laws, we look in the past and we think that every culture was a centralized bureaucracy like our own, governed by laws. And the majority of our interaction with each other, or a good portion of our interaction with each other, involves the law. This wasn't the case. You go back enough centuries and you don't even see the law having much to do with everyday existence at all. Like, it's minimal. And what really mattered were the local social conventions, the customs, which were established by the teachings of women in early childhood. All right. So that's what people were ruled by. Okay. Occasionally, if they had like a boundary dispute or a dispute over land rights, or maybe somebody's daughter ran away with somebody's son, they might involve the law. But other than that, or actually what it was is usually a gathering of local communities and something like a thing, right? And they would make these decisions. But otherwise, the day-to-day running of society was by customs and habits, that many of which were instilled by women. So they had that power and they completely ignore that. And what happens is, when you look at history and you look at the situation of women, you see that it's not men who are stopping women from being merchant marines and sailors and soldiers and knights carrying 100 pounds worth of armor, or even being able to handle like a big ox team. Or one thing was like the 6-horse stages. Like, it was very difficult for women to handle those because they just didn't have the physical strength. That wasn't what stopped women from being in those professions. What stopped women from being in those professions was physical strength and also perception of expendability. People didn't want to send their princesses out on merchant expeditions that could be beset upon by bandits and then have, either have to pay a gigantic ransom or just lose their daughters. They didn't want that, because they were defined by protecting. Many in these cultures, well, almost every culture is defined by protecting and providing for women. So my overall point is that you get rid of all the so-called male favoring laws and customs, you would see that nothing changes, because they are pulling a social veil. They are over biological reality. And what they're actually doing is making it custom for men to take responsibility for women's limitations. So when it says, well, women are restricted from doing this legally, first of all, they're restricted from doing it legally, probably to protect them. But second of all, that means their male relatives are obligated to do it for them. So all of these limitations represented actual physical limitations that they weren't going anywhere, even if the law didn't exist. The only difference is the law made it men's responsibility to accommodate women. Okay? Because men felt that was something that they wanted to enforce on other men. That's the other thing. Like, law was just men coming together. If you go back far enough, it was men coming together and saying, hey, what things do we need to enforce on each other? Didn't even have much to do with women, because they weren't enforcing it, and often they didn't have it enforced on them. Okay, so
the law was just like it was based in a moral framework so that we could like essentially operate, cooperatively and at least without too much disruption from people who might seek to do harm or, take your property or whatever. So it was basically a controlling force of safety, and probably was in a way taking women and children in particular into consideration. Like, what's the oldest law that we know of? I think there was some old like Babylonian king or something that he had the law like written on a script, chiseled in some big tablet. Other than that, there's the Ten Commandments.
Hammurabi.
No, yeah, Hammurabi. That's what I was thinking of, Hammurabi. Or the Ten Commandments or whatever. But these are like when you look at the logic behind the laws, it's like, oh, this is essentially to maintain some social order and, to enforce consequences on people who disobey. And but I mean, like, ultimately, the purpose of that is to protect women and families so that the species can continue. So anyway, all right. Let's get back. So she goes into a little bit of the history of feminism's relationship to gender critical theory. So let's take a look at more.
I think trans people are real. Yeah, pretty sure. And I also think traditional ideas about gender exist to keep women down. These things.
Are you
So there you go.
Nuts?
Yeah.
Yeah, trans are real, and then traditional notions of gender keep women down. No, absolutely 100% not. Right now, we still talk about how patriarchy is keeping women down, even as we talk about how women are struggling with a work-life balance, because men's work is not compatible with this early childhood rearing, pregnancy, lactation, and early childhood rearing. That isn't discrimination against women. If anything, it's discrimination against men. They don't get to take part in their children's lives, right?
But Allison, if gender doesn't exist, then that means that women's child rearing and breastfeeding and pregnancy, that's all. And I'm not saying this to be funny. Like, I think this is what these people really believe. Like, that means that none of those things are inherently female qualities. Therefore, if you are saying they are, you are keeping women down because you're telling them that they're biologically limited. And the trans theory stuff says essentially that all of this is socially constructed and it can be changed, and they will use science to do it. They'll take the exceptions, like people who are intersex or have different chromosomes or whatever, as an excuse for it. But ultimately, it's also that they can land in the same space, which is women are oppressed and it's men's fault. And that even includes trans women. Yes.
She wants to have her cake and eat it too, right? She wants, well, I guess she doesn't want to have her cake and eat it too, because she's falling on at least the least hypocritical side of this. It's the TERFs who want to profess that women's roles throughout history were not a result of biology, but a result of male oppression, which is nonsense. There, nothing, like, you strip all of the laws out, the supposedly oppressive laws towards women, nothing changes, because literally it is the process of getting pregnant, giving birth, lactating, taking care of young children that limited women's mobility. Like, and also the fact that they're physically primed for doing that, not, throwing sticks and killing wildebeest, right? Their physical limitations between, and their physical like, men and women are not physically the same. I mean, we're still like fairly similar, so we're probably not a.
We're mostly the same. We're more the same than not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's why we can form families and communities, and men and women sleep in the same bed. This is like, for most animals, they would never do something like that. There isn't enough simpatico between the male and the female, but we are fairly. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but one of the reasons why we're here as a human race is because men and women get along really well and can share a space and can share a language and can share food and all kinds of things, and a culture, and raising children. That's why we're here, because we get along. I mean, this is a blip in our evolutionary time scale. I mean, even from agriculture to this point is a blip. It's a tiny, minuscule fragment of our nature, and it's a very dysfunctional one. And because I know that, I know it's ridiculous to assert that a species one of whom's primary characteristics, primary thing that it evolved to give it a survival advantage, is the relationship between the male and female of the species. The positive relationship between the male and the female species is not going to be a species in which the male oppresses the female. That's ridiculous. And again, the biological limitations that women exist under explain what they were doing throughout human history. You take away. Essentially, you remember that Monty Python skit with Loretta, and Loretta wanted to have the right to have babies. If you guys don't know, Loretta was a trans woman in the Monty Python.
It was a gag. They did a skit thing that is a bit where you had these men and they were sitting on like a bench or something, and one of them said, "I think I'd like to be a woman, and I want you all to call me Loretta."
Mm-hmm.
And this was like what, the 70s?
Yeah, it was made in the 70s about it wasn't exactly
Life of Brian, I think.
Yeah, Life of Brian. It was Life of Brian.
Yeah.
So it was sort of a parody, not really like a one-to-one parody of the life of Christ, but just a parody of the times. And so Loretta said, "I want you to call me a woman." And then she went on to say, "I want to be able to have babies." And the other men were like, "What are you talking about? Where are you going to put it? Are you going to gestate it in a box?" And the woman who was part of the group, because they were a radical revolutionary front, said, "Well, we know that Loretta can't have babies, but we could fight for the right for her to have babies." If you went back to those times where women had these limitations and you said to the men, "Hey, what if you give women the right to sail ships?" That would be the same idea. You are giving them the right to do something they cannot do physically, right? They just can't do it, or very few of them can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that would have been the response. It'd be like, but the fact is that the fact that women were so-called legally restricted from things they couldn't do, period, meant that men were obligated to do them, and they did, right? So, I mean, it's like, for example, I don't think it was Milan. It was another one, the one that had to deal with the crazy preacher that almost brought them to their doom. I'll have to.
The Hunchback?
No,
What are you
Florence.
talking about?
I think it was Florence.
Are you talking about, what are you talking about specifically? Like, what?
I'm talking. Well, I talked about this story before. There was the Renaissance. There was a Savonarola Yeah, it was Florence. All right. So he was a preacher, sort of a fire and brimstone preacher, who preached the end of the world and like giving up all of your temptations and your indulgences. And he got into Florence, and he managed to get into power because everyone thought he was very cool. I don't know how else to describe it. And he started to bring about Armageddon. Like, and then there were the French coming through, and he's like, no, this is what we want. We want the destruction of Florence, because it is the destruction of like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's a good thing. We're all going to go up to heaven when we die of starvation and plague. And the inhabitants of Florence eventually were like, huh, yeah, but we liked you, but we didn't, yeah, we were interested in what you had to say about Armageddon, but I don't know if we really want it. You know what I mean? But what triggered it was they got so desperate with food that they started to have these bread lines, or these hand out these bread. And there were two women who were so desperate that one ended up killing the other. And that was like a shock. And they were like, no, this has got to stop. It was the act of a woman killing another woman over bread that made them realize that they had to kick out Savonarola, or at least his policies. And the whole social attitude in Florence was this idea that men protect and provide for women. So, for example, a father would put aside a certain amount of money when his daughter came of age that would function as sort of like a trust for her, that she could eventually retire on. And this was a big part of their like financial expectations. And Savonarola made it so that this became something that they started to realize they weren't going to be able to do. And these things, this fact that the men of the city realized that they weren't going to be able to feed and provide for their women, made them do an about flip on the issue of Savonarola. But my point is that in Florence, it was a very so-called patriarchal system where women were restricted. They were restricted from public life. However, when you look at the actual on-the-ground situation for women, there was a lot more expectation of providership. So a young girl, when she came of age, could be expected to inherit the equivalent of a small factory, because that's what a home was at the time. It was a factory producing goods. And she would be installed as the CEO when she got married. And when she retired from that role, she would be expected to have a pension, all provided for by the expectation of financial provision by her male family members. So despite the fact that this society was so awful and patriarchal and in feminist terms, they went out of their way to make sure women lived as much of a life of comfort as possible, comfort, security, and provision as possible, right? That's what I'm talking about. The more women seemed to be restricted in these societies, the more was put on men to protect and provide for them. So the societies where they were more loose about this, you got to see a lot more female poverty, female failure, because men weren't this wasn't as enforced on men to protect and provide for women. So, for example, we talk about today, women no longer can legally expect a man, their husband or their father or their brother or their sons, to pay their debts, because that's been done away with. So you can find women who who are swamped with debt and have no way of paying it, who have to declare bankruptcy. You can find stuff like that now. That would, if you brought people from the past to here and saw how women are now expected to provide and protect for themselves, and men don't do that anymore, they would say, we hate our women.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that doesn't go into the feminist parlance. And to bring it back to the biological thing, the people of Florence were just recognizing biology. They were literally constructing a life path for women that when they were old, they would be provided for. When they were young, they would have meaningful employment and be a leader of a small industrious space. And at every step of the way, men were expected to take on the burden of providing that for women. And it's not like women didn't do their share either. I mean, they were working in the home, and the home was a unit of production. I mean, throughout most of human history, most goods came from the home. You know, and if people were trading something, a woman probably made it. That's a huge amount of influence. Like, women were the economy in a lot of cases, like to a degree. And this is completely rendered invisible by, and all it was a agreement between men and women to help, to create a situation where women can follow their biological imperative to have children, and still be productive and protected by men. And there was nothing sinister about it. That's what's so annoying about feminists, is everything has to be paranoid and sinister. But of course, because it has to be paranoid and sinister, we can't recognize the effect of biology, because otherwise they wouldn't have this bludgeon of men oppress women as a silver key to get into any space they want and control it, as well as open up the coffers of government and business. I mean, if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't have that power. So they have to cling to this idea that everything is a result. Like, men literally constructed a society to oppress women. Like, they went out of their way in times of scarce resources, when everyone was scraping by, and starvation could mean, a pail of grain could mean the difference between starvation and getting through the winter. Men were plotting and using resources to oppress women. No! But regardless, they need to cling to this idea that it is something social, not something biological, that the effects of the situation of women in the past weren't 95, 90, like 100% determined by biological limitations. All right. So they had to destroy gender, and then we got gender ideologies.
I was going to say, like, what is the ultimate liberation? So women's liberation is like what we call it, but essentially it is a liberation from the biological. And that, I think, is where this is. I mean, you said, like, this is like the end result. We were talking about how this is the end result of feminist theory. I don't think it's the end. I think that there's more that we haven't seen yet. I think that transgenderism inevitably leads to transhumanism, and that is something that comes up in this video. Because I think it is like if you feel limited by your biology, then you must be oppressed by your biology, because liberation or freedom is the ultimate goal of these people. This kind of personal liberation, if you ask a feminist, what rights do men have that women don't, and they will answer with something like the right to be able to walk around in the middle of the night and not get, raped. And this is obviously ridiculous, because the world is what it is, and you can't make it into a world without any evil or any harm or any pain or suffering or limitations. And so the limits, or at least the perceived limits of being female, which I think feminism kind of like ultra focuses on, because men obviously have limitations too, but we don't think of those things as oppression. We just sort of like live with it. It's like for example, the Olympics. I think this might be appropriate. So in the Olympics, you have the absolute best people competing in various, feats of athleticism and skill and hand-eye coordination, whatever. And they are like, we're talking the best in the world. The reason why we like watching it, I mean, like, at least historically, we've liked watching it, is it's sort of like saying, what is the human body capable of? These people are operating at the most peak. So this is the absolute definition, or at least the absolute example of a meritocracy, at least in the physical realm. But that means that people who aren't quite at that level are left out. Now, men love watching the Olympics just like they like to watch sports, because they want to see exceptional feats, even stuff that they can't do. Like, I'm not athletic, but if I see some guy, like, skiing down a slope and doing like a crazy stunt, I'm going to be impressed and I'm going to say, wow, that guy's amazing. When I used to watch basketball, the stuff that Michael Jordan and like Scottie Pippen and those guys could do was like mind blowing. Like I was like just so hyped to see it, because you like to see people doing great things even though you can't do it. This is like, we get into like when they say, there should be more women in the military and that they should lower the standards so that women can be in the military or join the police force or fight fires or whatever, which my wife, Lindsay, she was trying to be a firefighter and she couldn't pass the test, but she was doing really well. I think, she didn't end up getting in for one reason or another, but
because she doesn't drive.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be that. But the point is that there is an expectation, I think, that women or these activist types have, where they're like, because they despise meritocracy, they want to change any merit-based system to be more inclusive to people who don't actually qualify. And so they'll even make up stuff to do it. And so the reason why I bring up the Olympics is because there was this, everybody knows about the viral video of the Olympic breakdancing competition, which was apparently, it seemed to have been specially made specifically so they can get this one Australian woman to breakdance. And it was awful. It was, I grew up in the 80s. Like I was into breakdancing. My mother wouldn't let me, she didn't want me to do it. I was like 11. She didn't want me to do it because the head spin was so dangerous. Like you're talking about it on the news and people could break their neck, but I did do some breakdancing when I was a kid. And I'm telling you, like as an 11-year-old, I would have absolutely destroyed this woman in a breakdancing competition, but she's at the Olympics competing. And first off, there's like, why does this event exist for the Olympics? But okay, barring that though, why is she? And then they go into her whole story as they give you this backstory. It's kind of like what modern art has become, where you need to learn the story of the art before you can appreciate it. They give you this backstory of this woman that was, she felt left out in a male-dominated activity, which I guess is breakdancing. And so they let her do it, and she was awful at it, and they put it in the Olympics. And I was like, this is the death of meritocracy. And so but the woman felt liberated to participate. And what I think is the thing about the trans activists is that they are looking, this is why all of the arguments that you just made about women's biological limits will not pierce their consciousness, and we're talking about women who promote this stuff too, not just, trans women, but like biological women. They're going to reject it because ultimately they want to be liberated from their physical body. They want to be liberated from that, and they have to start, faking it until they make it. And this is the mindset. So if you reject it, or if you say there is a biological reality to being a woman, just like there's a biological reality to being a man, they will act as though they're being erased by your words. And so because they want to be liberated from that. So yeah, biology doesn't matter to these people. Anyway, let's listen to some more of this a little bit, and then we'll move back to the next time code.
Result, radical feminists were split on how to think about trans people, but not that split. A minority, including Janice Raymond, thought that people transitioning to female represented gender entrenching itself. But most radical feminists thought trans experience could teach us a lot about how gender functions in society.
Raymond's depiction of trans people is neither the first nor the exclusive feminist account of trans issues. Indeed, Susan Kessler and Wendy McKenna's Gender, an ethno-methodological approach, was published a year earlier. This work extensively discussed transsexualism, not in terms of transsexualism as misogyny like Raymond, but as an example of how we are all doing or performing gender.
Just pausing for the banana there. I don't know if you want to say anything to that.
It occurs to me that all of this is just bullshit. It's sheer bullshit. And its only purpose is to justify extracting resources from people who make them. Well, men. Because
Well, yeah, what's the point of academia at this point?
as far as I know, men are the only ones still who do the majority, who's pay the majority of taxes, and the only ones who actually pay into the system rather than being a net negative, as women are. So women take more from the system than they give. And I think, you know, this may not be something that happened throughout all of human history, but it is now. So this is an astounding, if you think about it, all of this stuff is astounding because it comes from the group of people that takes more from the system than they give. And there have been groups like that throughout all of human history. And it's basically just a series of moral justifications for why the people they are taking from deserve to have things taken from them. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, yep, that this is just more of the same.
I think
meet
that's
the new
the
boss,
that's the
same as the old boss.
Yeah, I think that's the purpose of all this academic gobbledygook that just keeps coming, you know, and then it becomes it's you know how people would say that AI art is going, well, it had, in a way, it's already become self-referential, where, you know, it goes and it scours the internet for all of the tools it needs to create a piece of artwork. But now that there's so much of the artwork that's already out there that's already AI, that AI is essentially reaching into itself to create more work. That's kind of what this feminist academia is. So it's all feminists looking at the work of other feminists and using the other feminists as legitimate sources so that they can make new work that creates. So it's just like this thing that eats itself. And I think the more it does that, the further away from reality it moves. And this is why it's so easy for them to just say men are the reason why everything sucks. Men suck, because that's kind of like the baseline for all of this stuff. And it's just really easy.
Well, this is just like I said, most societies seem to judge themselves by how well women are taken care of, how well the family is protected and provided for. We're no different, except there are no children anymore, I guess. This is divorced from children, divorced from any kind of future legacy. But it's like this is it. I mean, this is the mechanism. It's all nonsense, but it's mouth noises that intend to justify taking stuff from men. That's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's other aspects to it related to, I think, to create, like, getting men working in the system. So what you do is you create shame and guilt so that men feel like they need to do something to erase the shame and guilt, so they participate in the system. You know, they feel like they have to become someone in the system. I mean, this is like, when I've looked at the more subtle forms of slavery, this is just lifted directly from that. Is that you take people through a process where you strip away their identities and their sense of value, and you say, well, the way you get value is by getting on this hamster wheel that I've constructed just for that. It just so happens to run the gears of our society. That's it. It's like 101. And I think feminism is that kind of a mechanism for the men of our society. That's fundamentally, it is driving men's participation. Like this constant drumbeat of shame and humiliation is driving men's participation in systems of generating other forms of merit. So you want to earn as much money as you can, because then you can earn a sense of value outside that, fill that hole that they beat into you with this shame and guilt, which is really hilarious, because generally the people who control this process are not the ones oppressed by it. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, let's listen to some more of this.
Kessler and McKenna were curious about what trans perspectives might have to contribute to the understanding of gender experience, gender relations, or women's oppression.
In the early days, these two sects butted heads, but also attended the same events, quoted the same books, and considered themselves to be fighting for the same goals, only through contradicting strategy.
Yeah? Do you want to say something?
No, I just I'm wondering if there's going to be a point to this. to any
I
of
think
this.
I think what she's doing is she's laying out the history to say, we all started off with good intentions, and then there was a little bit of gender critical. No, you had the gender critical movement, and overall we were kind of on the same page. But then you got like the part or this little radical bit of feminism. I don't know how she frames it, like whether it's small or the mainstream, that is not so thrilled about the gender critical position because it could impact the way that women benefit exclusively. But again,
Yeah.
like you have to ask yourself, you were just talking about this hamster wheel thing. Like not an easy question to think about, but we should think about it. How many trans women are choosing this path because they hate being men? And how much of that is the product of this gender critical, intersectional, gay, race-based communism, feminism stuff? How much of that is affecting men? Like Tina, who we had on the show, that was like, they thought, oh, this is a completely rational thing I'm going to do. It's not gender dysphoria. I'm going to live as a woman because living as a woman is better, because women are better, because men suck. And it's like, well, how many trans women believe that? I think it's a lot, especially because the number keeps going up and women are like mothers are forcing this on their kids. Like, how much damage is that doing? And so, like you said, there's like the hamster wheel of productive men that are essentially like, living in a semi-slave state because their resources are being taken from them through taxation and redistributed to women while they work. And of course, they believe that it's just like the right thing to do. Yeah, go ahead.
If you think about it, they're being rewarded for labor to keep everybody's lights on. So this system is taking men, putting them to work, giving them money, and then taxing that money. But the work that they're doing is keeping everybody comfortable and provided for. And isn't that astounding? It's like,
and then on top of that, you have what do the men who don't want to become a part of this semi-slave labor class, what do? Well, they could just live as women, and then they get to participate in the benefits. So when you said that, men have to what is expected of them is that they transcend or transform themselves, their identities as men, so that it's not like inherently like a normal masculine. So they live as women, so they can just like, well, I want to be a part of this upper echelon of existence. I'm going to live as a woman. I'm going to transcend my masculinity, and I'm going to live this way. While the men who don't want to do that, which is the overwhelming majority, they're just tax what? They're just tax revenue. They're just like being slowly drained, and all of this is being redistributed to women and trans women to some degree because they find ways, or at least they're hoping to benefit in the same way that women do.
I mean, I think the way that this goes is we have an investment in shaming and guilting men. So men feel like they have to overcome the deficit, the deficit that being a man is. And so they sort of start to develop this idea of taking pride or taking an identity in this, well, basically money. So acquiring money, which then incentivizes the work of society. And of course, feminists will come back and look at that and say, well, masculinity is so fragile, or toxic masculinity. But we really need toxic masculinity to survive. I wish we could find a much better way for this to work. You know what I mean? I wish.
Well, we could start by not calling it toxic, and
well, start calling it by toxic expectations, not toxic masculinity. I had a guy come into our Discord, and he was talking about, I wanted to talk about toxic masculinity because there are all these expectations put on men that are onerous, and I'm like, well,
by who?
Oh, it was just well, I didn't say by who. I just simply said, well, if there are expectations, why call it toxic masculinity? Why not call it toxic expectations? I've never seen someone bounce from our Discord that quickly. It's like you can't, just the least amount of pushback on that identity causes some men to go into a tailspin. There's just that least amount of, maybe it's not you, maybe it's the expectations placed on you. Maybe it's the guilt and the shame that's causing you to slowly kill yourself in order to gain back value. Maybe that's the problem. Bounce. Can't handle it. Just the least amount of questioning that system. It's gonna be hard, guys. Like to decondition people from this. It's a project. It's a project. Let's just say that. But to get men feeling like they deserve any kind of appreciation just for their masculinity and their manhood, that's a project. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I don't think men. Well, I don't think men have a problem doing that. But what I was going to say is I think I lost it. The thought.
No, I have to disagree. I have to push back a bit on that because I have seen men who do have a problem with that. They really do have. A problem
the toxic
with the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it was about the toxic expectations.
Yeah.
So the thing is that. Go ahead.
So it's women have to be open to sharing a bit of that inherent value. If you want humans to have inherent value, women have to sort of share the inherent value of being a female with men. And if we're going to, and it's both sides really, because it feels like it can be very threatening to question the identity that you've received as a result of being shamed and guilted. Because if you do question that identity, then what you're left with is that ocean of shame and guilt. So you'll cling to it. It's like it becomes your life raft. It becomes like, okay, this is how I'm going to navigate the world. And if I get off it, I'm going to drown in my shame and guilt. So men who are in that mentality really reject any question, like anything like, what does that life raft, is that life raft really working for you? They completely reject it. And you can understand why, because it's a just desperate survival situation and they're trying to keep afloat of the ocean of shame and guilt. So in that sense, it's going to be a very difficult process to kind of get people away from that. But also women, they feel like in many cases, and this society doesn't really help women on this score. Women feel like the only value they get is from being women because I've seen it. It's just difficult for them to conceptualize that you don't when Manifestelle yesterday said women are I don't know what she was saying, adaptable, creative, blah blah blah. It's like, no, you're not.
Oh yeah.
No, because Manifestelle tells you that you have these qualities doesn't mean you have them. In fact, the more you rely on people telling you that you have things, the less likely you are to develop them. And I think women struggle with that. It's like their skills are not, skills can involve performance, but skills aren't a performance. Like it's not like Manifestelle performing the dance of women being more compassionate than men. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That makes women more compassionate than men. It's women exercising the ability to think, to put themselves in someone else's shoes and understand men. That's what makes it, right? And she doesn't even give a shit about compassion for men. I'm just using that as an example.
Sure.
Right? So the more we say women have these qualities, the less they actually have them. Because these qualities don't come from being a woman. They come from gaining the skills.
Yeah, developing
the virtues, developing these abilities. So but women are stuck in that because they feel like if people aren't telling them that they're X, Y, and Z, then they cease to be X, Y, and Z. I was remembering I was watching, I know we're really far afield. Maybe it's because of the repulsion towards listening to the actual video, but I was on Twitter and a guy was talking about, how women, they struggle with being firefighters or being cops, and women shouldn't be firefighters and cops. And some woman was like, well, what is it? Is our only role supposed to be like cheerleaders for men? And he was like, yeah. You get a man, you cheerlead him, and he'll take a bullet for you. And she's like, that means, then there's no point. I'm like,
there's a star man waiting in the sky.
Lady,
Yep.
from the very beginning, your premise is ridiculous. You are going to this man and saying, how do I be valued? Like, I need you to say that I can be a firefighter or a cop or just as good as a man to feel valued. It's like, that's not, when people say you are something, it doesn't make you that thing. And going to this guy and saying, well, I want to be valued. Well, he's going to say what he values in you. Why don't you just develop your own value as an individual? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, but yeah, I need you to value women in these ways. Otherwise, women have no value. No, find in yourself what you value. You know, it's like this women really struggle with individuating. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
With saying, I'm going to be this thing. I don't need other people to say that I'm this thing to be this thing, because I'm going to do the actions that make me this thing. Like, I mean, does a mountain man need somebody to say, oh, you're a really great survivalist to be a really great survivalist? No, he goes out on the mountain and survives. No, he doesn't need anybody to say that. And that's the problem with women. They're constantly in this mindset that they think they need acknowledgement. They think they need people to say that you don't. Just develop the skills. And then you'll know in yourself that you are this thing. A mountain man doesn't need somebody to tell him he's a mountain man and know he's a mountain man. It's the Tao of the mountain man, you know?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right.
We should probably get through this. It's gonna be another 3 hour.
We get back to this. I don't want this to be a long show.
I don't know, Brian. I think this is shaping up to be a long show.
Yeah, I know. All right. So you know what? I was gonna say, because I think that, like, first of all, a couple things about this video. It seems really high end, like a lot of expensive equipment, and she got other people to help her do voiceovers. It's just another thing that gives me the inclination that these bread tubers, they get a lot of funding from people like to hook them up, because this is a pretty, like, she's using I mean, Manifestelle obviously doesn't do that, but this woman, I think that she's part of this like the Sean and Jen and the bread tube people. I think she's one of them. ContraPoints.
The feminati.
You know, like Prince of Queens, rest in peace.
The Femme Masons.
He did a video on ContraPoints explaining how expensive it is to make the content that ContraPoints makes, the costumes, the lighting, the microphones, the footage, and they get a lot of help. And there's a lot of astroturfing going on. So I'm just saying something about this seems astroturfed, but that's just my speculation. The other thing I was going to mention is that I think that when liberation becomes the ultimate goal, you're always looking for another thing to be liberated from. And that's why we're getting to this point where people are like, they want to transcend their body. And I think that this is like I think that's why there is a direct connection to feminism. And she's making this case, and this is something people should pay attention to. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Play some more of this.
Power over women in an era of rising feminism, and therefore the book understands trans healthcare and social inclusion as institutional sexism. This is not really supported by any of her contemporaries' ideas about gender, and it's not hard to see how it would drift away from feminism toward the movement we know today. Whether or not it means to, it ends up affirming biology as destiny and arguing in favor of gender policing to keep women safe. But Janice Raymond did not invent transphobia, even among feminists. She won over new members by appealing to a prejudice they already carried, which naturally attracted people who were less attached to advancing the feminist cause and more into building a framework around their bigotry.
Well, honestly, I think it's really, really simple. There's no real logic to it. You have a group of women who wanted to use this tool. And it's just a tool. Like it's basically like a hammer or a screwdriver or crowbar. They wanted to use this tool because it gets them money and clout, which is this profession that women's roles weren't a result of biology, but men's oppression. And they wanted to use it, but they didn't want to, provide any of that to anything called that they could consider a man. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the guns to be in the hands of men. You don't need to have logic here. I'm just curious, like, so if a man identifies as a woman, he doesn't have to change anything. If he identifies as a woman, he ceases to have the original sin of being a man, presumably, right? I mean, he can
For
change.
intersectionals, yes, depending on. But then again, they also have the ability to determine whether or not a man is like legitimately identifying as a woman, depending on how they feel about him.
But that's becoming like, that's challenged, right? Like they're saying that that we shouldn't question how people identify, right? So ultimately, doesn't that, I mean, honestly, if everyone identified it as a woman, there would be no feminism, and there would be no one to guilt and shame.
I guess not, but that's the thing. Like that's why there are, I guess turfs or
Yeah, because they know that.
yeah, Posey
They
Parker
know-
types. Well, that's
they
part
know.
of. I think that's true. Yeah, I think they know that it. And the thing is, though, I mean, is it a solution? Just have
No.
all men identify as women?
No, it's not a solution. Of course it isn't. I mean, it would, my inner troll is like, but no, that's not a solution to have men abdicate their identity as men. Like, but it is really interesting though, also, that this is the case, that if men identified as women, their legal situation would be immediately better. Their social situation would be immediately, their political situation would be immediately better. People would express compassion and concern for their issues. And yet we live in a society that benefits men over women? Nah. I mean, basically what the TERFs are doing is they want to keep all of that for women. That's what they want. I mean, I keep asking them, what are these women's rights that you want to preserve from trans women? And they never answer, but we all know what they are.
But we all thought women didn't have any rights, and the trans women have
that's
all
the
the
point.
rights.
That's the point. It's funny because they want to simultaneously say that the position of women in society is degraded and preserve that position just for women, because it's all bullshit. It's all just a tool. There's no logic.
Or I think what they would argue is that women, despite having so few rights compared to men, are in danger of losing what little rights they have left because of men. Like men entering women's bathrooms or women's prisons or women's sports is like taking away with the little sliver, the little tiny like morsel of rights that men allowed them to have. Trans women are taking that now too. This is
but let's say, but here's the
that's what they would
counter-argument to
argue.
that.
That's what they would argue.
Let's say that every man identified as a woman then and inherited the little sliver of rights and lost all of their rights as a man, or supposed rights as a man. They're against that too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, by definition,
all sports would be men's sports. Well, they'd be women's sports, but biological men would be playing them all.
Yeah, but the point is that trans women may say that they're trying to defend what little sliver they've gotten. But if you think about it, if all men identified as women, all of the ill-gotten gains that men have would be gone. Like they would all be in the position of women, so there would be nobody benefiting. It would all just be women martyring themselves. Like, and so I mean that completely contradicts the rad femme or the TERF assertion. Like basically, when a man becomes a woman, he's abdicating all of the benefits of being a man, presumably, unless there's something like I mean, if all of the benefits of men doesn't come from their biology, but from this arbitrary social decision to benefit men, then when men say, I'm going to stop being a man and be a woman, they lose all that. So the way to get rid of male privilege that the radical feminists have asserted in the past is merely due to social factors, not biology, is to have all men become women. Gone. Male privilege is gone because there's no social category to receive it. Like, why would they oppose this?
They would create a new class of privilege, though. They would just come up with it. They'd be like trans woman privilege.
But my point is that when you take their bullshit to its logical conclusion, it's a self-contradictory mess. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no reason to oppose men identifying as women. I mean, I guess what if we just had it so men who identify as women have their own bathrooms in sports? Is that okay? Exclusionary radical feminists? Of course not. Of course not. Because you're protecting a privileged role, right? And I mean, if we had that compromise, if we had that compromise that trans women had their own bathrooms in their own sports, could they take on the social role of women? TERFs would still say no, because they're protecting a privileged role, and by saying no, they are completely negating their entire logical construct, illogical construct that they've made. Because that is the way that you get rid of male privilege. You know, there's every trans woman is a little less male privilege in the world, TERFs, and you're against that. So okay, let's keep going. I'm talking over this girl, and
all right, let's get back to it.
Out of curiosity, how many more?
There's like 3 left. I can jump ahead to something else. She's just giving like the history. Let me look here. Hold on.
The early trans feminism was also prone to reading hidden motives into trans existence. Okay, I'm actually curious.
Yeah.
What are those hidden?
You want me to play this?
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Okay, let's listen to this.
Early anti-trans feminism was also prone to reading hidden motives into trans existence, which lent itself really well to conspiracy theory. It was all about the medical industry normalizing transsexuality for profit, creating these uncanny post-gender post-humans. While Janice Raymond has insisted the transsexual empire wasn't about an intentional plot to invade women's spaces, it's very easy to read it that way, and a lot of people did. So I can see why people call this sort of thing conservative or fascist. You know, they wanted me to stop existing. They were quite bad. But unfortunately, the right doesn't have a copyright on bigotry, and I find radical feminists hard to pin down as simply left or right. I often see them taking positions I find horrible for reasons I pretty much agree with. TERFs like Janice Raymond and Mary Daly weren't calling for a return to some simpler time before trans people existed. They were, you know, radicals who wanted to totally reshape gender or get rid of it altogether.
The prevention.
Well, so this is a trans woman.
Yeah, that's the claim. I don't know, because the thing is, like, legitimately, we're at the point now where a biological woman could claim to be a man that is transitioned to a woman and remain a biological woman. I honestly don't know. I don't know. And I don't care. I'm not interested. I don't care what you got going on in your plumbing, but yeah, I mean, she identifies as trans. That's why she said trans people exist, and then looks at her own hand sarcastically. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's
go to the next bit.
There's the
role of. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not feeling it. Okay.
Yeah. Let's look at the conspiracy theories a little bit later in the video. Hold on a second. About like the TERF conspiracy theories that are claimed to be. So I'm just trying to find it on the. What's the time
I should
code?
do a shout out while we're doing that. Is
37
I want to do a shout out to Great Indoors, because he did sponsor this video.
Okay.
And he put in $500 as a thank you for doing this particular topic. I think that the trans, like this battle between the trans exclusionary radical feminists and the other feminists, the
intersectionals,
it is definitely fascinating, but ultimately it's just it's not really a logical thing. It's just they are pursuing 2 different ways to manipulate men into giving them stuff, attention and money.
Yep. Well, yeah, and you got, like, I guess with the intersectional feminists, there's a way for some men who choose to like live as women that they can like get in on that. Like I don't know, like that, because like the TERFs obviously want everything for themselves. So I guess at least the gay race communists are more interested in sharing, I guess, to their credit. All right.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say one thing about the TERFs. I have had some run-ins with them. And usually what I do is I eventually just ask them, well, what's your plan? You allege that patriarchy is a horrible oppressive state for women. What's your plan? How are you going to get us out of there? Because I can tell you right now, as a person who likes to think about systems, the first step is probably to get your sisters to learn how to do utilities. And then I go on and I give them some action plan. I'm like, does this sound like there's something that they have for people who profess to be so oppressed by the system? They never are thinking about how to get out of it at all. They constantly talk about how they're oppressed by it, and they never seem to give any thought to how to get out of it. Because I can tell you that in previous eras, people who were oppressed by the system often did a lot to try get themselves out of it. And considering how those people were legally disenfranchised from removing themselves from the system. So in other words, if they did attempt to remove themselves from the systems, they would be hunted down and put back into the system. And yet in this era, women can simply remove themselves from the system by buying a bunch of land, setting up their own utilities, and living with their sisters. But they rarely seem to be doing that. Strange. It's a real
really boils the noodle.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're proposing that this is a system that is so oppressive to women. It's more oppressive to women than any system has been oppressive to humans throughout all of human history. And yet you have no desire to leave it. Sounds like you're just complaining.
No way. Women complain? All right, let's go to the video. We'll play a little bit. This is the next segment where she talks a little bit about the conspiracy theories that the TERFs have about trans people, because it's all about like so there's another thing that's happening between the TERFs and the intersectionals is they're trying to figure out who's really the oppressor and who's the oppressed, because it always comes down to that. So it's like TERFs are oppressing intersectionals, or intersectionals, because they consider trans women to be women, are oppressing TERFs because trans women to TERFs are just men. So it's just like which men are the problem, you know? All right. Anyway, back to the video.
Girl, I wish. These theories are so normalized that it's easy not to realize just
Wait. I think I jumped a little bit too far back. So let's get back to it.
because it's fine. But of course you can't accept that. All you hear about are the times when things go wrong. You're going to search for other answers as to why trans people exist, why governments tolerate us, why the mainstream media isn't covering all these horror stories you're hearing about. As you radicalize further, the gap between your reality and everyone else's grows. And as that gap grows, so must the size of the cover-up. Who's benefiting from all this? Who's greenlighting all these TV shows? Why is the government paying to mutilate children? Why are there pronouns on my goddamn chocolate bar? The world of anti-trans conspiracy theories is vast and probably well known to most of you. You hear people bring them up in bits and pieces in a way that can make it sound like they're not conspiracy theories, but widely known facts. You know, people call us groomers.
Okay, lady. This stuff is happening. It's not a conspiracy to say that it's happening, right? Now, how is it that you recognize there is opposition to what you are doing, but not that you are doing it? Like, how is that even possible? Is this what you're trying to tell us? You are trying to do something. You're trying to normalize trans, which means you're trying to put them into movies. You're promoting organizations that increase diversity. Like, you're saying that, for example, all of those organizations that explicitly say we will increase the diversity of your writing in games, and presumably I also exist in television and writing, all of them don't exist. Like, they do, because they exist, because they make money, they're paid, and they're on people's payrolls. They exist. So yes, there is a push to get trans inclusive content into games and TV shows and movies and all of that. That exists.
The Olympics, the
And
White
the Olympics,
House,
and also to
Yeah, like
have it
this-
be
the
normalized
military.
in schools, and also to have, like, this stuff is happening. All right. And you would say that you are part of it happening. So what you're saying is, yeah, I'm doing this thing, but recognizing the fact that I'm doing this thing is a conspiracy theory. No, that's you wanting to do something, and if somebody says, I don't like that thing you're doing, and you wanting to shout them down and marginalize them, recognizing that you're doing it. This is the annoying thing. It's one of the most annoying thing about activists of this stripe. They do something, they say, this is what we are doing. And then if somebody says, hey, you're doing that thing, they say, no, we're not. And if we are, it's a good thing. And no, we're not. And it's a good thing that we're doing it.
Yeah, or they'll start by saying that thing that you think is happening isn't happening. It's a conspiracy theory. And then the next step is, well, that thing is not happening and you're a crazy person. But if it was happening, it would be a good thing. And then it's, well, it's happening, but it's also a good thing. And you're not allowed to have an opinion on it. And the thing is, it's not even necessarily making a value judgment. That is where this starts. It's just like observing, like I'm noticing things and I'm saying that I noticed them. And that's where the offense begins. So I'm not even really necessarily making a value judgment or taking a position on it. I'm just saying this is happening. Maybe after that, I might ask the question, is this good? Because I think it's a good question to ask. But they're like, no, you can't talk about this. That makes you a bad person. And,
okay, so is this all about the conspiracy theory of
but there's
she's doing what she says she's doing?
There is a bit more. I think she gets into the let me see here. Elite corporatists. She talks about Helen Joyce, and let's see. You know what? Let's just listen to some more of this. Hold on. I think there's something coming up here.
Supposedly financing the movement. Just like, girl, I wish. These theories are so normalized that it's easy not to realize just how deep the iceberg goes.
Wait, but BlackRock is funding it.
Is pushing behaviors, yes.
And
by their own words.
I wish, like you were talking about earlier about how her video seems very
professionally made, yes, with expensive tools like cameras, footage, and she's got other people doing readings of her various sources who are probably also activists on BreadTube as well. Yes, I think so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yes. But the other thing is that, even just to say to her point, we know that these initiatives are being funded because the people funding them say that they're funding these initiatives. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's like this, this is another thing that feminists do, is that they want to make you think that they are really small, but also boast about their power, or like how I don't know, establishment their positions are, while also trying to be the underdog. They're trying to live in both of these spaces at the same time. And I think these people are doing the same. Obviously, like I said, the Olympics had a whole trans, Last Supper thing. The White House did a whole thing. Like, they declared Easter National Trans Awareness Day. Like, these are not, and again, I don't care, do what you want, but you can't tell me that that's not like some serious top-down influence in the culture, right? Every June, it's like, okay, here it comes. You know, it's like we know. So yeah, I mean, I don't care, but just don't pretend like what's happening isn't happening. Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining. But okay, I got a Rumble rant from NobaFan21. Thank you, NobaFan. He says, trans activists, we're just minding our own business. Also, trans activists, we're coming for your children. All right. We haven't got any super chows. Let me see. Did we get any super chows?
We did get a super chow.
We did. Okay. For some reason, it's not coming up on my Social Stream Ninja. So anyway, Long Live Clyde gives us $10. Thank you, Long Live Clyde. And says Astro Turf, the organically popular anime. Is that a real thing or? Like Astro Boy. No, it's Astro Boy, but he's saying Astro Turf.
He's just being cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just cute.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, back to this.
Oh, good Lord. Let's finish this.
Yeah, let's try. Oh, shit. Keep talking.
Low
messing this up. I'm going to shut up.
Receipts for all this. I'll link their work below. Anyway, all roads lead to Billick.
Technology is taking us as a species on a bullet train ride towards humanity's melding with AI. The pharma and tech-controlled media are overriding any critique of the purported human rights movement, a movement poised to rake in enormous future profits for pharma and tech. They are engaged in overt censorship regarding any critique of what this agenda is doing to society, children, and women's rights. When we step back to look at the bigger picture, something much different than a human rights movement emerges. It also explains why most major corporations, banks, pharmaceutical, tech, and medical industries, along with politicians and governments, are all in for trans. Why would they care about 0.03% of the population? What is the investment?
Jennifer.
Okay. Well. Okay. Basically atomizing us further in order to control us, I would imagine. But what is wrong with this conspiracy theory? Let's hear.
I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, though. Like, I think that there's plenty of, I don't want to say proof, but there's a lot of evidence. Like, none of this is crazy. It sounds crazy, but like, you look around and there's like legit like people pushing for this stuff. And a lot of it comes from the trans activists. Like, they're the primary drivers of this stuff. Like, what do you? Why is Jeffrey Marsh still on TikTok saying, "I want to talk to the kids"? Like, again, I'm not saying that this is a complete picture, but we're looking at elements like right in front of our eyes, and this person wants to say, no, it's ridiculous if you think this. And it's just like I said, just like when you look at the natural, and I mean, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but there are people who the goal of liberation does not have an end outside of, because it gets to the point, like, women have never been freer and they still feel oppressed. And they are oppressed in their mind by their own biology as women. And so why wouldn't they want to transcend that? Why is it that there is like a growing number of trans men, and these trans men, and my heart bleeds for them because they are suffering, I'm sure, but they become men because they think it's better to be a man, but then they will continue to identify as a woman because they also see the benefit of being a woman. Like, we just did a video, was it a few months ago, where there was like a black trans man that got like the surgery done and was sitting there saying, I still identify as a female lesbian because I'm better than most like biological men. And she boasted about this. And it was like, wow, like, that is crazy that you would even frame your life that way, where you're like, I'm in competition with men, even if I become a man. Where does that come from? So like, you have to ask yourself where it comes from. But this YouTuber doesn't want you to look too closely, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
All right. I will say that the fact that they're talking about women's rights is sort of a red flag for me. The thing is that I don't need to appeal to a conspiracy theory to know that when you embrace something like men oppress women, when you actually degrade the relationship between men and women with bullshit like men oppress women, that you're going to have absolutely awful things come of that, that you're going to destroy the relationship, not just between men and women, but between men and men, women and women, women with themselves and men with themselves. And that's like, this is, to me, I don't need to say that BlackRock did this or this is AstroTurf. This is just a symptom of a society that's embraced its self-destruction, which is a philosophy, a religious belief, an idea of the relationship between men and women that is profoundly toxic. Like, and you don't, in my mind, this is these entities that you're identifying aren't the cause of the death of the they are what's feeding on it. BlackRock is feeding on this. Pharma is feeding on this. The government is feeding on it.
Yeah, they're not creating it. They're
not creating
benefiting.
it. They're not in the long term. I guess they're benefiting by maintaining their own, but they are feeding off of it. They are feeding off of the mental illness, the society-wide mental illness created by believing that men oppress women. Full stop. It is society-wide. Like it is the cause of all of this shit. I know that seems very simplistic, but the thing is that the relationship between men and women is the foundation of everything. Everything. And it will always be the foundation of everything for a sexually dimorphic species. And when you destroy that, you will see effects everywhere. And they'll seem like they're separate because it's really difficult to see the foundation that everything stands on. Like that's actually very difficult. It's like being a fish and seeing water, right? But when you see all of these problems everywhere, problems in infrastructure, problems in getting the right people to the right jobs, problems with meritocracy, problems with the government, problems with the systems and the trust, and problems with the medical industry, problems with the banks, problems everywhere. It's because there's something wrong with the foundation. When you get down to the foundation, you're talking about what we are saying and what we are teaching about the relationship between men and women. And I will keep saying that until enough people understand it.
Intersectionals don't want you talking about that because then you are defining men and women. And they don't just believe that people can switch. They want the gender to completely be abolished so that there are no men or women. So this is like this is what the darkest part of trans ideology is. And contrast that to TERFs, and I know that we like to dunk on them too, and they have their own problems, but it all comes from what feminists created. But ultimately, the reason why the trans ideology is going to destroy us is because its primary goal is on eliminating distinctions between men and women. And in fact, they would argue, and they have a religious belief on this that's been written about by a lot of queer theorists, that the soul is separate. The body is a prison, and the soul needs to be set free. To set it free is to change the body to match the soul. So that's what they believe. It is ultimately a religious belief. But anyway, let's get into. So she responds to this. We could listen to her response to that if you want. I think it's just like oozing sarcasm and just kind of dismissal. All right, let's listen to it. Does she have an argument? I think she just says, "Ooh, look at how crazy these people are. How can you believe they believe this?" But let's play it. Let's play it.
Basically, just
doing
just
the thing. Suggests. Well, she suggests that they're bigots too.
Well, she's just doing the thing where you say something or you just pretend you're. It's like I think in a region in Africa they have this contest, or maybe it was South America. They have a contest where two men will get up on stage. And one will try to make the other one look as ridiculous as possible, not using arguments, just by pointing and laughing or just making faces and whatever else. And that's the whole point of the contest: is whoever makes the most of the audience laugh at the other is the winner. And that's what this is not an argument. This is just basically displaying contempt in order to pretend like what you're displaying contempt at is contemptible.
Yes. All right, let's
Okay.
play the video.
It does
I
work,
did get one. Yeah, it does. I got a super chat. I'll read it really quick. TV Dinner Master Chef. I haven't seen him on here in a long time. What's up, TV Dinner Master Chef? I remember you from years ago. Gave us pounds. I'm sorry, £5. Oh, I'm sorry about what's going on in the UK. And he says, BlackRock/Vanguard fund those creating it. At what point does feeding off of become causing and vice versa? Well, it's like an Ouroboros, isn't it? Snake eating its own tail and all that. All right, anyway, thank you for the super chat. Let's get into this.
Billick is a gender-critical conspiracy theorist who believes global elites are advancing trans rights in order to bring about transhumanism, the melding of man with machine, the obsolescence of biological life, maybe even the Human Instrumentality Project. Okay, well, now I'm just pandering. On her blog, The 11th Hour...
All right, that was the end of the clip. So, this is true. That's it. There are people who legitimately believe it. Even Elon Musk has talked about it. This is true. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, because like where I started hearing about this was from Natty, and I know that she says crazy shit, but I think she's right about that, and I've looked into it. And yeah, I think that, and then ultimately, again, it's like I was saying before, if you want to be liberated, like completely liberated, then you got to like put your consciousness in a fucking AI online. Like people are already kind of doing it. If you go to like, they're trying to like, they're sort of, I'll say that they're sort of, what is it? Teasing it. Like they go into the VR chats. They, you know, why do people identify as animals? Why do people identify as all these different things? You know, I think that it's a crisis of identity, and I think that it is where people are headed. I'm not saying it's where we're all gonna have to go, but I mean, what is like Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse? I think this is actually something that is going on. I just don't know how widespread it is. I don't think it is. I think it's an internet thing. I think it's like a people who are terminating online thing. But I do think there is some of this. I don't think it's radical to say. I mean, Allison, you're trying to talk, but I can't hear you. What did you do? You did something. You did something again. You touched the rat's nest. All right, thank you for the super chat, by the way, TV Dinner Master Chef. I've been around, mate, hiding in the shadows. The UK is effed, so is every Western nation, so hey-ho. Well, just get out the marshmallows and start roasting marshmallows. I got another super chow while Allison's working on that. I got another super chow. Let me see if I can like do something on my end. I think that I can alter your audio settings. So right now it's set to your Shure. I'm going to change it to the MacBook Air for a second. And now, can you say something? Oh, no, I can't hear you. So it's not that. It's not that. I'm going to set it back to the to the Shure mic, and I'll let you figure that out. In the meanwhile, Super Chow from Richard Bier says for $5, just remember that ideologies like these don't fare well in the middle of a famine. After all, when large segments of the population are worrying about getting their second or third meal in a particular week, many of these complaints will fall on deaf ears. Well, yeah, that's another thing that I have said many times. This is only something that can exist in a society that is extremely comfortable and safe. Oh, you're back. Wait, you're gone.
Switch. Can you still hear me?
Oh, yep. Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, so for whatever reason, when this happens, I have to switch it to the Mac and then switch it back to the Shure. No idea what's wrong. None whatsoever. Maybe you're right. Maybe I just touched a cord in my rat's nest and there was a cascade of failures.
Seems that way.
But anyway, no, it's done. I've got this back. I was going to say, you know, the transhumanism thing, I don't doubt that there are transhumanists out there. Honestly, I think that it's irrelevant because all we need to do is make people want to be men and women again. And that's it. And we can do that. And if you want to be a transhumanist, that's fine. People who want to be men and women will just have kids. And yeah, probably will be the future because of it. But like
Yep.
I'm not a super conservative by any means. Like I think that we do need to reproduce ourselves, but I'm not going to say that it necessarily has to be in I mean, it'd probably be the ideals man, woman, child, but if it's going to be gay men adopting kids, I don't know, whatever weird flavor, we just need to get it all working. Even if it's just working in a way that conservatives are like, what the fuck is this? What is this duct tape thing you've constructed? As long as people are enjoying themselves and having children, that's what matters. Right? They are invested in something. That's what matters, I think. And we need to get there. And I'm not too worried about what it looks like if we do. I don't particularly. I will. What? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, no, I was just saying it's fine. I'm just saying, like, I'm not making a claim about whether or not that is good or bad. I am simply stating that it is, and she's acting like it's ridiculous, and I'm saying it's not. And that's all. Oh, I can't hear you again, Allison. I don't know what you did. I don't know why your setup is like that. I just watched a video that this guy did a great little demo of a product, which is a microphone that is inexpensive and Bluetooth and pretty high quality. So you might want to look into that. It's like $70 for like the deluxe version, $40 for something like kind of cut and dry. So just saying, I'm getting it myself. Oh, there you are. Wait, you're gone. You need a new cord or something?
Okay, yeah, it's probably a fault in the cord. Just because every time I touch it, it breaks. So yeah. It's probably a fault in the cord. Some I did something to the cord. I screwed it up. I'm sorry, guys. But I think that's probably what it is. I just need to replace the cord. It probably will be fine if I replace the cord. We don't need to do. I mean, I'll look into the microphone that you're suggesting, but I think this will probably be okay when the cord is replaced. This has all the hoof prints of like a break in the cord, is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. I got one more.
Alternatively, what I need to do is implant a chip into my brain, and then I can just think my thoughts into the microphone, and it'll have like a diaphragm that takes those thoughts and turns them into sound. And I don't know if I want to give people direct access to my thoughts, though. That might be a bit weird. Okay, go ahead.
Too late.
What
Too late.
doing?
Well, no, I was gonna say this is the last. This is the last clip. I tried to boil it down. Essentially, most of it is again, what is a feminist, and then they become like, what is the far right, and the far right just means whatever she wants it to mean, and that means that anybody who disagrees with her is in that club. But if this is the last bit, and it also happens to be the most watched, so it's the biggest hump. So we're just gonna watch that.
Okay.
There's bigger. Bathrooms with guns. Someone like Helen Joyce speaks in the Register of Women's Rights. A run-of-the-mill liberal can follow her for years, probably, without ever realizing her work is built on the conspiracy theory that Jewish lizard bankers are transing children to create a new world order. As a follower of Joyce or Bailey or whoever, you can be oblivious to their conspiracism or.
It'd be cool if it was, though. If there were like lizard bankers, at least we would have like a target.
Okay. I just want to say that this woman believes that men throughout human history have oppressed women. That is, men who have absolutely nothing in common and would kill each other on sight have somehow come together to perpetuate a system of oppression of women in defiance. Because the thing is, if a non-oppressive society was more reproductive, was more productive than an oppressive society, it would win out. But they have done it in defiance of even human survival and in defiance of the fact that human beings work together and that's what makes us survive. Nope. All of that. Irrelevant. Men oppress women. You have no grounds to talk about conspiracy theories, my friend. None whatsoever. You believe the most ludicrous, ridiculous, and stupid conspiracy theory ever constructed, which is that men oppress women, that men have come together, that this half the human race has come together, agreed to do something. And you can say, oh, it's just a small number of men on top, but they do it apparently with there's no way to get around it. They would have to have the agreement and the investment of all the men underneath them to do it too, in the way that you're describing. So it's all men, basically. And men teach each other patriarchy. Even when a boy grows up with no male role models, all female teachers, single mother, doesn't even have a grandfather in the picture or even an uncle, he has been taught patriarchy by men. Bullshit. You have no grounds to judge anybody's weird conspiracy theory because yours is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The more,
well, that is the. Go
the
ahead.
more disseparate the group, the less likely they have come together for a single purpose, right? Like, men are every part of every single culture, ethnicity, race, orientation to everything. They represent diversity, unbelievable diversity. And yet you would say that all of these men, different ideologies, different religions, different cultures, different beliefs, different desires, have all come together for one thing. It is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. The instant somebody spouts it, you know they're not thinking rationally. Okay. I'm just saying.
Let's do the rest of this hump. It's okay. No, it is. Well, that is ultimately what I concluded too, is that like she's trying to dismiss all these people as conspiracy theorists, and she's a feminist. So
disavow it outright. But even if you do, conspiracy theories will continue to motivate your political actions because a conspiracy theorist will still be the one handing down orders. Also, 2 days before I had to film this, Helen Joyce was caught reading sexually explicit Harry Potter fan fiction about children in public. And I didn't have time to work that into the script in any way, but I just needed you to know that the A-list turf Helen Joyce was caught reading smut about children. She says it was for research. She says it was for research.
This is just gossip.
yeah, I mean, like,
I'm not
these
on
people
either
always.
side.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not. Well, me neither.
Like, who cares? Like, the best outcome would be these two sides kill each other, and the rest. We rise up from the ashes and rebuild society.
Yeah.
It's like Godzilla versus Mothra.
She's getting to a thing where she compares the neo-Nazis because apparently they also read Harry Potter fan fiction. Anyway, let's see.
Pragmatic way to get things done. Coalitions are not inherently evil. I work with liberals and anarchists all the time, even though I am neither pro-capitalist nor anti-bedtime cheap shop. Sorry. Yeah, by all means, work with people, but also use your brain, right? It's incredibly naive to think the far right would show up at your events with anything but nefarious intentions, or to think they care about women in the same way you do. Nor do they care about the struggles of blue-collar teenagers, nor do they care about the planet. When fascists infiltrated environmentalism, it didn't reduce carbon emissions. When they infiltrated punk, it led to more violence, more stigma, and worse music. Collaborating with them never helps the original cause because fascists don't show up to help. I hope it goes without saying that the redirection of anger about misogyny into transphobia has been a disaster for feminism. And I include trans-exclusionary feminism in
Kill yourselves. Oh, sorry. No, I don't mean kill yourselves. I mean, in Minecraft. No, not quite like that. I meant ideologically. Destroy each other ideologically. Be the snake eating its own tail so that you guys disappear and the rest of us who aren't invested in the most hideous conspiracy theory in all of human history can actually start building something outside of the smoking ruin you've constructed with it? Is it like it all comes down to it? Like that's it. You
Well,
can't
we just have
think.
to endure that. I mean, and then like see who like gets out on the other end, and whether or not they're gonna look around and say, "Oh, damn, we fucked up." I guess
didn't
we
mean
should
like
try doing things a little differently.
I didn't mean that they should unalive themselves. I meant that the ideologies should destroy each other respectively.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what the hell does she mean by fascist?
Well, she presumes that fascists are also misogynists and they believe in property rights and excuse me. Yeah, so fascist is basically anybody who I disagree with. That's it's part and parcel.
It's like watching two branches of a conspiracy theory fight each other.
Mhm.
You know, and it's like, well, okay, that's happening. This is something that's occurring. I'm not really invested in any of these sides. I don't
Yeah.
care which. Honestly, I'd just go and fight over your conspiracy theory.
I just think the whole thing has been a gigantic woman moment for like the past 100 years. So, and if we just get through this, then I don't know. But anyway, that was, I mean, she basically like brings up, is it Julie Bindel or Judith Butler? I get these women mixed up. The fat one. And
Don't know.
we don't have, but okay, well, let's do a teeny bit more.
Movement leaders have boosted their public profile, but mostly it's just forced the movement to abandon any commitment to reproductive rights, separatism, gender abolition, things they once held as core principles. These days, when they talk about abortion, it's to complain that we're saying pregnant people and not pregnant women.
With the new legislations around abortion taking place in Texas, many human rights organizations decided to use the wording people who can get pregnant rather than simply women to describe the ones being affected by the new law. Would you consider this a step towards inclusivity or an act of erasure of women?
It's not inclusive if you're excluding half of the planet. Men do not need, ever, to access abortion. Ever.
The liberals who fall in line, like,
Of course, because
Yeah. Oh, and by the way,
Men's-
she thinks Keir Starmer's Labour Party also fascist. UK guys, because they're not trans inclusion enough while they're destroying your country with socialist bullshit. Anyway, go ahead, Allison.
this is what happens when you allow people who do not understand systems to overlay their impression of how things work onto systems. It's like we don't get an architect. We just get someone with a crayon drawing of a house. Ugh.
Yeah.
Let them fight. Let them
Well,
fight.
that's basically like there's I'm leaving a couple of other ones on the side, but I think this is all the big bits. I mean,
I trust
essentially
you.
feminists, there's a pipeline. As soon as you start questioning the trans agenda, then you are in bed with conservatives who are basically Nazis, let's be real. And then you are serving the patriarchy or the kyriarchy or whatever we're calling it now. And that makes you a bad person. But remember, you're only a bad person because you are siding with the wrong people. The people who believe in things like family and children and, you know, I don't know, like they're God-fearing. Like those are the evil people. The people who are not involved, by the way, in your struggle with yourself and your own people. They're not your enemy, but you think they are. So, and so that means that the intersection, or not the intersectionals, TERFs are siding with them because sometimes, supposed like right-wing outlets will interview TERFs about the trans thing.
Well, not my fight. Like you fight over the smoking corpse of this stupid conspiracy theory that you all have constructed and believe in. And you fight over the end result of teaching this conspiracy theory. Right? You fight over all of that. Like literally, feminists taught the conspiracy theory that men oppress women. What does that mean? That men are defined as being oppressors, that women are defined as being oppressed. A whole bunch of people stop wanting to be men and women, not surprisingly, because you don't really necessarily want to be a victim and you don't necessarily want to be an oppressor and have to carry that load of guilt. And then the very same people who caused this problem start to advocate for the people who were damaged by it. And then the other people who still caused this problem and created this situation want to say that no, this is wrong. We're not responsible for those people, and we're not going to be responsible for those people. It's just a whole bunch of fuck coming out of the inability to take your thoughts and look at reality. Do these emotions, do these feelings, do they have anything to do with reality? No? Yes? Maybe? Can we do a reality check? No. This is just all of these people. The unfortunate fact is that they control a lot of, I guess, the purposes of a lot of different institutions.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, let them fight. That's all I can say is let them fight. I'm not going to try to figure this problem out for them because there is no answer. There is no answer. There is no way to construct a détente between the TERFs and the intersectionals.
They both just have to stop and walk away, but they're probably not going to do that.
No, the only way that you can stop and walk away is to stop asserting that men oppress women. You got to stop it. You got to walk away from your conspiracy theory. You know? I mean, if you got two groups of conspiracy, like the earth is round like a plate. Oh, sorry, the earth is flat like a plate. No, the earth is flat like a square. Well, you know, the thing is that you've constructed this reality in which the earth is flat, and both assertions about the earth are true in that reality. The only way to resolve that issue is to walk away from the belief that the earth is flat, feminists. Just stop. But you know, this probably won't be a voluntary process. This will be hard stop, as in everything will disintegrate. And then we'll have to look at the pieces and say, where did we go wrong? Believing a conspiracy theory about men would be where. All right. I got a Rumble rant and a super chat, and then I guess we can wrap it up. So sure.
The Rumble rant goes as follows. NovaFan21 gave us $1 and says, I love how lefties act like one oppressive world order narrative is somehow a conspiracy, yet a similar one that primarily switches the victim is somehow the only valid one. Well, it's all a game. It's all an academic game. And then Dean Domino gives us a super chat for $4.99. How do you do that? I thought that, like, is it maybe if you do it on your phone, it like rounds rounds down to $4.99? Like, why does it look like that? Okay, anyway. And says merch idea for the channel, quote, for the feminists in your life, the tinfoil pussy hat, end quote.
Maybe I should do some tinfoil pussy hats.
They'd have to be pink with ears, but also made of tinfoil. I think you could do it.
Yeah.
Pink tinfoil. Can you make tinfoil pink?
Is there pink tinfoil?
I don't know. I imagine
Google.
We'll have to look it up. That would be pretty funny. Or just like a hat that.
Yep, there's pink tinfoil. Oh,
there you go.
Man-eater magenta.
Oh my God, no! It exists.
Yeah, it exists. It's called Man-eater magenta. All right. Yep, there's pink tinfoil, so we could construct pink pussy hats out of tinfoil, and then we could give them to the feminists in our lives. Here you go. This is how you accessorize your retarded conspiracy theory. Enjoy.
If you make it trendy, they'll do it willingly. They will rock those willingly.
Okay.
You know?
All right. So with that, I think we should say yeah.
Adieu.
Adieu. If you want to support the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Thank you. Big thanks to Richard Bier and The Great Indoors. The Great Indoors sponsored this particular response. Richard Bier sponsored the previous response. And thank you both. Both for like $500. So very much appreciated.
Woo!
And yeah, we're doing well.
All right.
I mean, we're that was a very generous thing to do, especially this early in the fundraiser, because I know everybody likes to wait to the photo finish end. But anyway, if you want to support us, every bit counts. $5, $10, all is very much appreciated. All of it, like every $5 is the last $5 that got us over the line. So feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message and a tip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send. And you get the benefit of sending your comment not through YouTube's comment enhancement system or having a place to send it if you're on Exeter. I'm just going to call it Exeter. Exeter.
Okay.
It's like X and Twitter. Exeter. Twitter. X. Whatever. All right. Back to you, Brian.
Okay, so if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. There's a link to the videos in the description. Both of them are in the description, so you can look at it yourself. And please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, and we'll talk to you all in the next one.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.